Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today you're looking at a very weird view of my '06 Saab 9.3 Sport Combi. And the reason for that will become obvious here in a second as I pull down my driver's side seat belt. You can see I've got some duct tape kind of cobbling it together. It had started to fray really bad, and when my buckle slid down below it, it took me about an hour or so to pull it back up. So since this is a very critical safety element, I went ahead and ordered a replacement part. For this, there is specific parts for left and right side, driver or passenger. And so this is what we're going to be replacing today. The part that you're going to need to replace the seatbelt is going to be, well, a replacement seatbelt. So when you open up the box, I already cut it open, you get first a set of instructions on how to do this, which is actually really, really nice that they provide this for you. A lot of times you get replacement parts and there are no instructions because if you're replacing the parts, you just assume that you have some pretty good idea of what you're doing. And then we also have our seat belt itself. Let's set the box aside. And so you can see we have the retractor. This is what's going to go down into the floor. This is the left-hand side. There's specific ones for driver versus passenger. In the US, the driver we have left-hand drive vehicles. Then we've got all the way down by the driver's seat. Here's the little cleat that goes by the driver's seat. Our GM tag. Our new buckle. And then we've got the other little cleats here that will mount up through the rest of the hardware to replace. Because remember, this is going to be coming out of the retractor, up beside the driver, and then back down across for the belt. Also in the box with the seat belt, there is one bolt. This will be our top mount bolt. You'll want to make sure you replace this. This has all the tension of the belt as you lean forward and it retracts will come onto this bolt. So they give you a new one of those. The tools that you're going to need for installing the replacement seat belt are going to be a small handful of sockets, ratchets, and basic hand tools. So first we're going to need a 8mm socket. We're going to need a 13mm socket. Of course, we're going to need a 10mm socket, a 16mm socket, and maybe the oddest of them all is going to be an E14 external Torx. If you look at that, it's got a star pattern on the inside. And then a T25 Torx bit or a T25 Torx hex key would work fine. You're also going to want a trim removal tool. You might want a small screwdriver, 1/4-inch ratchet. I've got a wobble extension. This is primarily going to be used for getting the lower seatbelt clip out because there's not really room for the ratchet. And so the wobble extension I think will be a great way to help get down into there. I've got this Mac hand drive extension with a 3/8 drive I can use for being able to spin the sockets here with my hand. Love this. This is a great tool for Mac. And then a 3/8 torque wrench. And that's it. So some pretty basic tools. You probably have most of them. Maybe the only oddball one is the 12-inch wobble extension and the E14 external Torx socket, and that's it. So now let's get started on swapping out the seat belts. So to get started on this, the first thing you need to do with the battery still connected is to go ahead and slide that driver's seat all the way forward, especially if you've got power seats. This is going to be very important. And then tilt it all the way just like I've got here so we've got full access to the seat belt. And then go ahead and proceed to disconnect the battery. But at this point, after you disconnect the battery, you're going to want to let the car sit idle for maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes and make sure that all the components are completely discharged because we don't want to accidentally trigger the supplemental restraint system and push out an airbag by mistake for an accidental deployment. No reason for extra collateral damage on something as simple as replacing a seat belt. And now I'm going to take an E14 socket and disconnect the connection by the driver's seat after I've let everything sit idle for, in my case, it's been probably about an hour and a half since I disconnected the battery. Make sure we save our bolt. And then there is our cleat from the bottom of the seat belt. Now the next step on the driver's side is going to be to use one of our trim tools and to try to peel back a little bit of the sill trim and then pop up a little bit of the front trim here, because that connects a little bit of this piece of trim that covers the rear bottom part of the seat belt. Has to be able to get disconnected there from that part. Now we're going to go to the rear passenger side. And now back here on the rear passenger side, I'm going to go ahead and work on getting access to this piece of molding here. And that should disconnect this lower piece of trim like that. Here's what it looks like from the inside at the bottom. We got that piece of lower trim removed. Then at the top, I apologize for the shaky camera. I'm going to sit here and have to pull out the seat belt. And then this piece of trim, if I can slide it around. Be careful with the headliner. Pops out. And now you can see we have full access to our seat belt. There's our retrainer, the rest of our mechanism at the bottom there. And there is a clip that goes mid panel on the B pillar. Our connection here at the top. And then at the bottom down there is the rest of our retractor. So the next step is going to be to raise up the retractor and to get the seat belt out of the B pillar trim. Just like that. And then this trim piece can be set aside. And then now at the top, we've got a bolt to remove. Make a note of the position. This is a good time to get out your cell phone camera and take a quick picture of the orientation of everything here. And the next thing I'm going to remove is going to be these two 8mm bolts. And then now for this upper bolt, we're going to use a 16mm socket to break that loose. I'm going to just put this bolt just right in place there temporarily. All right, now we're going to get this lower bolt out here, which is hidden behind the carpet. We're going to use a 13mm socket and an extension to get this one out. And then we have one last bolt to remove right here, which is going to be an 8mm. Set that bolt aside for later use. And then now this comes out. And then now I've got to pop out the wire connector here. There we go. And now we have our old seat belt all the way removed. This is a great time to go ahead and do a little cleaning around the car. And now we've got our new seat belt, and the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and insert the wire, snap that in place with the yellow. Then you'll see there's this little tab here at the top that's going to have to pop up in there like that. And then we also have to make sure we get this around the carpet. Be careful with those wires. And then now that I got this fitted in, I'm going to take my lower bolt, place this down here behind the carpet, go ahead and hand tighten that in to start it. We'll use our 13mm socket. Just going to give that a couple turns here at the end of the extension. And then after that's somewhat far down, I'm going to use a torque wrench here to tighten this to final torque, which is going to be 27 foot-pounds. All right, that's our 27 foot-pounds for that lower bolt. Now we have our 8mm retention bolt that goes right here. There we go, just snug that up. And then now working our way up, make sure we don't twist the belt, is going to be this belt guide here. Now what's interesting is they actually changed this from 8mm bolts to T25 screws. And now that we got the middle part, we're going to go ahead and take the top bolt and then put that in, making sure we get our everything aligned up here on top. And now we're going to use our 16mm socket and tighten this down. And once that's getting close, this is going to go also to 27 foot-pounds. So we're going to use the torque wrench. Set this to 20. We're going to use this at 27. Now, before we install the trim, I want to inspect this. And one of the things that I'm looking for here is if there's any sharp points right along here, and I can see very specifically there's a little bit of wear right here. So I'm going to use a little bit of light sandpaper to lightly sand that to keep that smooth so you don't have anything that's going to create a snag on that seat belt in the future. And once you feel like you got all the burrs off of it, then we will be able to proceed to reinstall it. Feel free to go ahead and remove any other dust that you can get out of this trim cover. And then we're going to put this back into the car. To start with the trim cover, we're going to go ahead and feed through our seatbelt components. There's our lower anchor. And then we're going to need to take our actual buckle like this, get that through. And then now comes the fun game of fitting the trim piece back in place, starting with the top and then working our way down to the bottom. So it's going to be a bit of a couple part game because we've got this adjuster. It needs to match up with where the seat belt is coming out. After you've replaced the trim, make sure you double check that your rubber gasket here is not being pinched out or risk being cut by the trim piece that you installed. Double check that on the rear door and on the front side here by the driver, which leaves us with one more bolt to put in. So now our final bolt will be to set the lower front anchor in place like that. Drop in the E-Torx bolt. We're going to use our E14. And after you've got that reasonably set, make sure the belt is all square. We're going to use our torque wrench and we're going to set it to 22 foot-pounds. 22 is our magic number for this lower front anchor. And now we should be done. Verify the seat belt doesn't snag. You can also pull it out and verify that it will snap. And then now we have a seat belt without any duct tape or snags. Now to finish up our job, we're going to go ahead and reconnect the battery, starting with our positive terminal. And then our negative terminal. Go ahead and close your battery cover. Don't forget any tools under the hood. Now we're going to go ahead and close our cover. And now with the hood closed, we can go ahead and give it a quick test drive. And then we should be done. Total repair time should be less than a half hour after you wait your battery disconnect time. And so if you like videos like this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. I've got a playlist of other Saab 9.3 repair videos. Go ahead and check this out. This video should be included in that playlist. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. Bye.